Hi guys, and welcome back to Aisha.Academy. And in today's video we're going to be going through basic probability. So let's get right into it. Okay, so probability basically just means the likelihood of an event occurring, or what's the chance of something happening. And when we think of probability in regards to maths, we have it on a scale of 0 to 1. 0 being impossible and 1 being 100% certain. So probabilities can be written as either fractions, they can be written as decimals, or they can be written as percentages. So be aware of these different forms that it can be written as. So I'm going to give you an example of a probability question. So we got a dice, because they love dice probability questions in maths. And if your question says, what is the probability of rolling a 5 on this unbiased dice? How we'd work out is that the probability of rolling a 5, so this is how we would write it in maths. It would be like P for probability, and then in your brackets, whatever is the probability that you're working out. So the probability of rolling a 5 would be the number of 5s on a dice over the total number of outcomes on a dice. And by total number of outcomes, I mean all the different spaces on a dice. So there's only one 5 on a dice, and we know that there's 6 outcomes on a dice. So that would be your probability. And another thing I want you to know is probability notations. So what I mean by that is different terms. So notations just mean different terms. So the first thing is a letter on its own is an event. So B is an event, and then B with the dash means it's an event of not B. Yeah, so not B happening. Then if you have the P brackets, so remember I mentioned this briefly before, so if you have P brackets B, then it's the probability of B, the event, occurring. And then if you have N brackets B, it's not the probability, but N basically is representative of the number of times that B occurs. So remember, there's a difference between the number of times and the probability of it happening, because that's the number of times in total. And then two other important terms. The first one is mutually exclusive, and that basically means that two events, or mutually exclusive, also known as when you're adding, which I'm going to explain why. This is when two events can not happen at the same time. So for instance, if you have your dice and you're trying to work out the probability of rolling a 3 and a 5, you can't roll a 3 and a 5 at the same time. And so to work out their probabilities, you'd have to roll for the 3 first, and then work out the probability of rolling a 3 first, then work out the probability of rolling a 5. Then you would add them together, because these two things cannot occur at the same time. So the whole point is that when you have two events that cannot happen at the same time, their probabilities are or, because it's either or the probability of rolling a 3 or the probability of rolling a 5. And in this case, you add them together. So that's what I mean by or means adding. So two events, or you add. So it'd be 1 over 6 plus 1 over 6, because you can only get the probability of rolling 3 is 1 over 6, the probability of rolling a 5 is 1 over 6, which would leave you with 2 over 6. Then, with independent events, this is where it basically means and you multiply. And I'll explain why. So the reason being is that these are when two events can occur at the same time. So I'm going to give an example. So for instance, we have our dice, but let's say you have a coin as well. And let's say you're working out the probability of rolling a 3 and flipping a tails. Well, you can do that both at the same time, because they're two different events. And so you'd work out the probability of rolling a 3, and you'd work out the probability of rolling a tail. And because they can happen at the same time, this is represented as and we multiply them together. So independent events are and we multiply. Mutually exclusive events are or and we add. And so in this scenario, rolling a 3 is 1 over 6, flipping a tails is 1 over 2, it's a half chance. Multiply these together and you would end up with 1 over 12. So these are really important to note. So now we're just going to go on to some practice questions. So example 1. So in this scenario, we've got the probability of rolling a 5, 0.3, the number of times it's rolled, and we're estimating the number of times that a 5 is specifically rolled out on the dice. So the number of times of 5 would be equal to the probability of a 5 times the number of times, which would leave you with 120. That's it. Example 2. So in this scenario, they love to do this sometimes with probability questions where we have to fill in the table. So let's dissect the question. So the total probability is 1 in any scenario. Then it says the white counters in the bag is the same as the black counters in the bag. So because we know total probability is 1, we're going to do 1 minus the 0.2 and the 0.5, and that would give us our total probability of the white and black counters, which that answer would be 0.3. Then we're going to divide them by 2 because their probability is the same, which would leave us with 0.15. And that's it. Then part B of that, it says that there are 240 counters in the bag, so we need to work out the number of red counters. So we'd have to do, the number of red counters would be equal to the probability of a red times the total number of counters, which in this scenario would be 0.2 times 240, which would leave us with an answer of 48. Final example, example 3. So in this scenario, it says the probability that a seed will grow is 0.75, but we're working out the probability that the seed will not grow. So because we know total probability is 1, to work out the probability of the seed not growing, we will do 1 minus 0.75. And that would give us the answer of 0.25. And that's basically it on basic probability, guys. So I hope that was really useful in terms of part B. Now we're working out the estimate the number of seeds that will grow. So it'll be the probability times the total number of seeds, which would be 150. So I hope that was really useful, guys. Thanks for watching.